Okay, welcome everyone. We are recording, so I think we can go ahead and get started, breaking MIT protocol and starting 1.3 minutes early. I'm John Oxendorf, professor in architecture and also civil and environmental engineering, and director of the new Morningside Academy for Design, or MAD, and really excited to host you to share a little bit more about the fellowship and answer any questions you have. And I'd like to introduce a handful of MAD colleagues who are here with me. So over to you, Maria.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maria Yang. I'm a professor of mechanical engineering and I'm also associate director for MAD. And I will pass things on to Marion.
Hi, my name is Marion Cunningham. I'm the Associate Director for Administration for MAD. Welcome. I look forward to meeting you all virtually, and I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Catherine.
Hi, good evening. My name is Catherine Higgins. I am the Academic Research Program Administrator for MAD.
So we have a few slides to go through. It shouldn't take too long, and please feel free to put questions in the chat. We'll probably answer questions. The slides will probably answer a lot of your questions, but if you have others, then we can open it up at the end. And I think we can go ahead and start the slides. So first, to begin with, what is MAD? We're a new entity, and you can learn all about us. We're cross-cutting. We're supporting design across all of MIT, and you can learn about us at design.mit.edu. If you're not on our mailing list already, please do sign up there. We have events. We have all sorts of activities, and whether you're awarded a MAD fellowship or not, we really hope to see you engaging and helping us elevate and connect designers across all of campus. So please do follow the work we're doing, and there are many opportunities for students to get involved with MAD and to propose public events or programming or bring someone to campus or take design classes. So there are lots of different ways you can engage with MAD, and the portal is really all through design.mit.edu. Next, how did we come about? Well, we observed, Maria and I have both been on the faculty for decades, and we've seen a lot of growing interest in design across MIT, students wanting to use design to translate their work into the world, and is a way of addressing urgent and challenging issues that we face. And we don't have to tell you, there are many in the world today. And so 4 years ago, exactly, Maria and I chaired essentially an ad hoc committee of leading designers from across campus, saying, what can we do to help support design? And we had a series of recommendations, and in particular, just thinking about ways that we could make more resources available to students who were using design or were working as designers. So I'll pass it on to Maria to tell you a little bit more.
Thanks, John. So this committee led to some great findings, and sometimes your wish list and dreams do come true. We received a gift from a generous gift from Gerald Chan and his foundation, his family foundation, the Morningside Foundation, which you see Gerald here. And this has enabled many different things that are sort of in motion now. In particular, this enables an endowment for graduate fellowships, which is why we are having this call today. And maybe we can go to the next slide. And we can tell you more about this fellowship, and this is why you're here. Next slide, please. And really, the first thing, the most important thing is, and I see we have over 40 people now, which is great. This fellowship is open to any graduate student at MIT, not in their, who is currently here and is a master's or PhD student. That is fine in any major or discipline, but they must be doing work that is sort of design related in some way. We really value this notion that design permeates MIT culture. It's not just in one department or division or school. And we want to be broad in how we think about design. And I believe I will pass things on to Catherine now.
Great, thanks, Maria. As Maria said, graduate students who are currently enrolled and in residence will be in residence at MIT in the upcoming academic year, eligible to apply. There are two components to the application. One is the faculty nomination. We really encourage you to work with your faculty advisor or faculty member you work closely with who knows your work well. And talk to them about your application early, because faculty members can only nominate one student. Through our Accelerator app, which is linked from the fellowship webpage, you will see a form, and there are two components to upload, one being a CV or resume. That's one page showing your current degree program. And the second element is a statement of interest. And in this, you'll address your area of study at MIT, including your research questions and methods. And as Maria said in the previous slide, you'll be talking about who benefits from your research, what are the impacts of your research on users, on society, or on design research in general. We also ask you to describe how your graduate program includes design. You may include how you see your long-term goals as a designer or in design research. You can also include examples of design work you have done or design expertise in the past, although that is not a requirement. The selection criteria for the fellowship, the applications will be reviewed by the MAD directors and MIT faculty members from all 5 schools and the College of Computing. They're looking for, academic strength in the applications, creativity, the clarity of goals you're describing in that statement of interest, and how you engage with design, and again, its impact. The evaluators will also look closely at the faculty nomination and how you've described the impact of the fellowship, potentially the financial aspects of this fellowship on your academic career. And the evaluators will also be considering the cohort as a whole and the diversity of perspectives on design through the cohorts. And now I'll pass it to Marian.
There are many benefits to the fellowship, and I see that the financial benefits are listed first, but I actually think that some of the non-financial benefits may be some of the stronger aspects of this fellowship. The community of fellows, the knowing people who are across the institute, not just in your department, getting to know more about MIT's rich design history. Also, we have a very strong. We also have a very strong communications group, communications group that really works to highlight the activities of fellows, so that if you win an award or you have a particular project, we really try to uphold that and bring a spotlight to those activities as they relate to the fellowship. Of course, there are also the financial benefits. And this year, we're doing something a little new that we want to highlight. You may apply for the fellowship for 1 semester or 2 semesters. Often our students who apply, or students have RA-ships or TA-ships that they'd like to have in 1 semester, and they can't have both the fellowship and the RA or TA. So in that instance, you might be interested in applying for the MAD fellowship for 1 semester. This year, that is an option that is available to you. In addition, we have a monthly stipend, and we also offer health insurance for each semester that you're here. And finally, we have a scholarly allowance of up to $5,000 that you can use for conferences or research that may not be covered by your department or areas of design, interest, and pursuit that you like to pursue. I'd like to note the key dates, which are coming up. The biggest one is January 14th. That is the deadline for the applications. In mid-March, we will announce our decisions. In late April 23rd or 30th, we will present the fellows as part of the Boston Design Week. And then in late or mid-August, we'll process the various paperwork. I will also note that we had issued the call for applications in mid-November, and obviously today we're having the information session. You might want to get a sense for who some of our current fellows are. We have 10 fellows currently, and they are from the departments that are noted here: urban studies and planning, electrical engineering and computer science, management, media, arts and sciences, architecture, mechanical engineering, and civil and environmental engineering. Each cohort that we've had has been equally diverse, and we try to have about 10 people in each cohort of fellows. And now I'm going to turn it over back to John and Catherine.
And I just want to say we're really fortunate to have two previous fellows, prior fellows, who are joining us today. So James and Sorby, if you would like to say hello quickly and introduce yourselves, and they're on hand to answer questions as well, so you can hear directly from them as well. So please, James, then Sorby.
Hi, everyone. My name is James. I was a MAD fellow in the second year cohort. Um, I, at the time, was a master's student in architecture and civil and environmental engineering. Now I'm a PhD student in Earth, atmosphere, and planetary science, but still sort of a part of the MIT MAD community, so happy to answer any questions.
Hi everybody, I'm Surbi. I was part of the first cohort for MAD and was in DUSP in the city planning program. When I was at school, I've graduated now, still around the Boston area and work as an urban planner. And yeah, the MAD experience is one of the most transformative things that happened to me in my time at MIT. So happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you both. So at this point, the floor is open, and please feel free to raise your hand and then unmute and ask your question.
There is a question about whether SPURS fellows are allowed to apply. And I believe the answer is no, because isn't the SPURS a one-year program?
Well, you need to be enrolled in an MIT graduate program. And so if you're not enrolled in an MIT graduate program, a master's or PhD, then you're not eligible. But also a one-year program like an MEng is typically not eligible because it's really apply now for next year. So it tends to be your second year of a two-year master's degree. So if you're a SPURS fellow who happens to be doing a two-year master's degree during your SPURS fellowship, then you would be eligible, but a typical SPURS fellow, I think, would not be. Anyone else? We've been very efficient in 13 minutes covering information, so hopefully that answered most things.
Maybe we can stop share so we can see each other.
Hi, I have a question. I was not here for the beginning steps of the presentation, so I apologize if this was already covered. I'm wondering if for the financial portion, there's any way to like either defer or like hold that in an internal MIT account to be used in a following year if we already have funding for the next upcoming year.
We have
Go ahead.
we have not had any deferrals. Our attempt to really address that is to allow people to have the fellowship for one semester. So I guess that's an elegant way of saying no.
But depending on your department, they may be so happy to receive the MAD funding that they will happily bank the internal funding and then save that for a future year. So it can happen depending on your department, but the MAD fellowship is for the year that you apply. And as was mentioned, please tick the box for one semester or two semester or a priority you have if you had a TA-ship, for example, one other semester. So I see Ricardo and then Yifeng.
Hi, John. Thanks for the clarifications and the overview to you and your team. I just was wondering, I'm finishing to be a master's student. Like I'll be theoretically graduating in May, but I have PhD applications going at MIT. So will I be eligible to apply, or would I have to like apply for next year when I have a guaranteed placement for the upcoming academic year?
Anyone want to take that, Maria? Or I'm happy to. I mean, the short answer is you must be enrolled, and we've specifically tried to give the answer on the fellowships prior to the admissions decisions so that it can affect admissions, but it's not typically for first year PhD students. So if you are hoping to come in as a PhD student, it would be more appropriate to apply your first year because we don't know for certain that you're admitted yet, and so we can't give you a fellowship until we know you're admitted.
Thanks.
Chicken and
Yifeng?
egg.
Oh, sorry.
Please, anyone else?
Yifeng, you have a question?
Oh, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear
Can you hear
you.
me? Yeah. Here's like two questions. First, like, I have two advisors here, and like I think they are both from different background, like they both can support my research. And thinking about like, do we have is the better for me to have two nominees, or we can only accept one nominee here in the application?
That is a great question. We
Yeah.
have had instances where an applicant has had two nomination letters.
Okay.
So it is possible. The main thing is that each nominator can only nominate one person for the fellowship.
Yeah, I got you. So if I can got to nominate, it's possible. And
Possible, but it would
yeah.
prevent them from nominating another student. And so in all
Yeah.
likelihood, one of them
Got
might want to nominate another student and another advisee in their group. So I think talk to
Yeah,
both advisors
to
as
see
soon as
how there's a
possible and see which one is willing to nominate you. And if the other one
got
doesn't
you.
have anyone to nominate, then you could have both.
Yeah, got you, got you. Actually, like one of my advisor is from AUCS, so like I will talk to them. Thank you. And also, here's a second question for you. Like my current academic plan is to graduate in the next December. Like I just have a one semester round for the 2025 to 2026 academic year. But actually, the reason why I graduate in that time is because right now I'm self-funding for that semester. So if I can get a fellowship, I'm really thinking about and we more appreciate to have a year-round like academic plan here. So
Yeah.
if I still can apply for the 1 year round.
Yeah, or you may take one semester only, but that's the sort of thing that your nominator could also mention in their letter, that they would really like you to stay another semester and it would be a great help, something like that.
Got you. So like I'm not sure how the application portal goes on, so I was still applying for one semester, but nominators said it's better for if one to extend to 1 year round.
Yeah, you
Or
could say both, or you could discuss it with your nominator and decide, if you would be open to 2 semesters or one semester. We
Got you.
have 3 other questions, so I would like to get to those if possible, and then we could come back to you. 4 other questions.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
We have 2 in the chat. Does anyone on the MAD team want to start with the 2 in the chat, and then we'll go to Juliet and Naf?
Sure. I was just, I think, typing to Alicia your question about the dual masters, and similar to Ricardo, you would not be eligible if you have a pending application for a degree.
But
program.
if you find out that you are admitted in the dual masters prior to January 14, you could say, for example, I'll be doing the MCP in addition to my MBA, but you would need to find out, as Catherine says, before January 14.
In terms of what to prioritize on the CV, I would say prioritize your design related experience and credentials. I mean, if there is a design element to other work that you've done, you can point that out as well. You're right, it's not a lot of space. So no 2-point font, but maybe 10 or 9-point.
Please, Juliet, and then Naf.
Hi, I wanted to ask about if there's any flexibility on the PI status for the faculty nominator, and what that looks like. I know it's different lecturers, senior lecturers, but if there's flexibility there.
Every year we've gotten nominations from lots of members of the teaching staff across MIT. We do tend to prioritize PI status or ladder rank faculty. But if the person who knows your work best is a lecturer or senior scientist, and you want them to nominate you, it's okay. It doesn't mean that you won't get the fellowship, but we are prioritizing faculty. Thank you, Juliet. Enough, and then Oz.
I was wondering, because it's a design related fellowship, is there a way to add also visual content like portfolio, images, website link?
I can take this one. Thanks for the question, Off. There's a limit of 10 megabytes for your statement of interest. And so you could add an image or two, but we really encourage you to include links. As I had said, portfolios are not required, but you're welcome to put a link to a web page or a Dropbox for a portfolio or any other design materials. So we encourage links, but maybe keep it at a reasonable number. We know it's tough to keep all of the information in 2 pages, but we encourage you to share the most important aspects that make a compelling application.
I'd like to just pause for a second to ask James or Sorby if there's anything you'd like to add, because our staff, we've been answering all the questions, but are you good with everything? Is there anything you would want to clarify from your perspective as a former fellow?
I think I'd gotten a lot of questions like in the past 1 or 2 years, or when folks reached out asking about like what's a good way to respond to the statement of interest. And again, this is like just like my own perspective, and so take it with like pinch of salt. But like I thought, kind of thinking about what the design fellowship offers you in the sense of like, this is what I bring, or like my experience. This is what the fellowship will like help me do in terms of like resources and platform and such. And this is how it fits into the larger picture of what I want to do. Thinking about it in that framework really helped me respond to the question of the SFA. So yeah.
James, you want to add anything? You're good.
He does. I do. Okay.
My Zoom is lagging. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think I could add much to Serbia. I mean, I agree. I think it's just a good opportunity to really explain what design means to you in the context of your work, and sort of not hold yourself back to what you may think the preconceived notions about design are. I guess I wanted to add a little bit just about, I don't know, my experience in the program, because I think it was also like a really formative and sort of like big highlight of the time in my master's program, and sort of want to emphasize that, like, yes, the financial support was really like facilitated research that I wasn't going to be able to do otherwise. So that was like a huge thing. But I think it's hard to see from the outside sometimes that the community that you get to be a part of is like a huge win. And it's still a community that I, try to be a part of, and appreciate sort of like hearing lots of different perspectives about design, and kind of like expanding my own sort of like work and ideas. So, definitely if anyone wants to talk about it more, please feel free to reach out to me. It's kind of just what I wanted to share.
Thank you so much. So Oz and then Prerna.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to apologize in advance for this like end of a job interview kind of question, but I am curious. I think we use, like a lot of people, times we use the word design just in general with varying degrees of it meaning anything. If you know what I mean, I think we call a lot of things design, and sometimes those things aren't necessarily design. I'm curious specifically, like, what are the things that you all are interested in? Like when we talk about advancing design at MIT, like what is that referring to? And then I'd also maybe like to hear a little bit more about James and Surbi's projects, if that's okay.
Great. Maria, you want to take that one?
Sure. So we have a good question, Oz. We have worked studiously to avoid defining design. we've gotten that question 4 billion times and we have avoided it every time. So I think that and that's not because we're trying to be, cute or anything. It's really that it means very different things across the institute in different departments. So it really is the way you want to define design, and we actually mean that. And that's maybe so, because architecture is different, mechanical engineering is different, product development is different, HCI is different. So you should take that as a positive in whatever kind of design related work you do. So that's the first thing. Second is, I think it's a great idea to hear from James and Serby. Maybe you can talk a little bit about your, John, were you going to add something?
The only thing I was going to add was that we do tend to believe somewhere there is a human being who could benefit from your design work. So if you are using the word design in a very, very abstract way, an algorithm that is like 5 times removed from humans who will ever apply this algorithm, that doesn't feel particularly designed for social impact. So we are interested in human beings being involved at some point. But as Maria says, a big tent, lots of different approaches to design across MIT.
I actually, John, thank you for keeping me honest. So yes, human beings, social impact, or something along those lines, and then maybe creativity. There's this notion of it's not just an algorithm.
So James and Serby, you have queued up your 12-minute TED Talks. Just kidding. You want to just share your projects briefly that you proposed? Serby, then James.
Okay, yeah. So during the MAD fellowship, I was trying to inspect the question of digital equity. And before I get into that, I want to just kind of reiterate what John and Maria were saying, that what I found during MAD, that there was this flexibility to really kind of define how you interpreted design. And I think that was very refreshing to hear different perspectives on how people interpreted design, right? Like in kind of somebody from like, say, like engineering or like biomedical sciences, space sciences, I being from like a planning design background, thinking about how do those ideas of design talk to each other. So I think that was a very, very good part of like the conversation we had. And then in the particular project I took up in the fellowship, I was thinking about the question of digital equity and how does that play out in the context of like informal settlements in urban India. So I mean, there had been like a massive like nationwide cellular revolution around getting cell phone internet accessible to a lot of different people in the country. I mean, through like price and market factors, and that led to like massive like digital activity. And I was looking at like layers of social intermediaries like community-based organizations and whatnot that were help bridging capacity, right? So like once everybody has access, that doesn't kind of ensure equity still. And so what were the processes and the social intermediaries that were helping bridge and create better like socioeconomic and civic participation opportunities in this digital space for traditionally marginalized residents and informal settlements, right? So like, I mean, I guess you could be like, what is design in that? So it's like a question of like process design. It's a question of like community conversations. Who is a part of kind of this conversation? How do different groups get represented? How do those representations sum up into like kind of policy change and advocacy and things like that? Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool actually hearing about everyone's projects. I think it's something that you kind of get to do at the beginning when you're in a cohort and you're like, whoa, like everyone's so cool. Uh, so I was working on what's called nature-based coastal adaptation. I study environmental fluid mechanics, particularly in coastal ecosystems. And so I was working on ways that we can think about designing coastal infrastructure to be climate resilient, taking advantage of sort of like the inherent physical, ecological, and social resilience that sort of restoration of our coastal ecosystems entails. And so there was part of it where I was working in a lab doing fluid mechanics experiments. I was in the architecture department doing projects and different kinds of proposals with communities in vulnerable coastal communities. So stuff about like storm surge and things like that. I guess to, John's point about there being a human involved, there are definitely humans involved, but it was actually important to me, and sort of an angle in my project was thinking about the not humans involved. So I came from an animal husbandry background before I came to grad school. And so designing for the oysters, which is the critters that I was working with, was kind of like a big part of my project.
Thank you. Perna?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much for sharing your projects. They're really cool. I guess a question I had was regarding the research, like the statement that you submit as part of the application and what the scope is. Are you sort of proposing a project that you would do in the upcoming year? Are you describing things that you've already done, working towards it? Like I guess I'm trying to understand at what stage of your research are you describing in the statement? Because I'm somewhat like halfway through my program, so like I've done something and I have ideas for what I want to do. So which one am I prioritizing on the application, or is it a combination of both? Yeah.
I could share what I did. Not saying that it's the only way, but I think a mix is kind of what I tried to land on. Like I had an idea for a project that I had kind of had the opportunity to explore in previous classes. So I sort of tried to include experiences that I had that kind of spoke to almost like a proof of concept. But the fellowship is a really great opportunity to do a project that you actually may have not otherwise been able to do, maybe because you have like teaching assistantship responsibilities or things like that. So the faculty that I worked with, it was somewhat of a proposal, but again, like not in a rigorous way, and it was really like a thesis that I had been developing. I was in also my second year of my program, so it was like a kind of like ideas and questions that I had been thinking about, and so kind of used MAD as like a launching pad to really make it a big project.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I think kind of similar for me. I definitely picked up like, so again, this whole digital equity project, I'd been working on a similar project in like Kenya with like a lab at MIT in my first year. But I mean, from that project, I had like learnings and I wanted to inspect the same question in a different context, but a little bit more free from like the constraints of, that specific research project and the way it's set up, right? And so having the funding helped do that. And I wrote both pieces of it, but I also, I think, wrote to how it ties into the broader narrative of my interest in this area of like digital equity and why it like means something to me, right? So like the long arching narrative of like my work also. I think those are the three things.
Okay, got it.
And that answers Berfine's question in the chat a bit as well, that the projects can be at various stages of development. It could be aspirational for something you'd like to do that the fellowship could enable you to do.
I saw Mitch had their hand up. I don't know if your question was answered.
Yeah, that
Mitch?
was actually exactly my question. So thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else? There's also an email address you can write to with other questions, and we'll post this recorded session. I will say that in the last few years, the interest has been growing, and we have typically had many more applicants than we've been able to support. It's been our goal to support graduate students and not give the funding directly as research grants to faculty who might hire postdocs or, other soft money members of their labs. And so please do lean into your own uniqueness and the ways that you use design to try to improve the world. Sergio.
All right, thank you for the information. I was just wondering, so if I have an arrayship or a TA-ship for next semester, I wouldn't be eligible to apply for the full year, right? But that, like, the reason why I'm applying to an arrayship and a TA-ship is also because I just can't afford, or someone might not afford to be doing its own research. So Yeah, and then you're at the point where you would not turn down something that was already confirmed. So would you only be allowed to apply
Yeah,
for the
so-
second?
So my
Yeah.
quick recommendation is that in your application, you could tick the box for one semester and you could say prefer spring, prefer fall. And you could also tick the 2-semester box if that makes sense for you. And your nominator may talk about, in other words, many of you are trying to secure funding. And if you're able to secure funding already for next fall, by all means do it. And yet your nominator might also talk about that. From your department standpoint, your departments will be able to support other students with the money. So if you end up getting the fellowship and you turn down a TA or turn down an RA, your department typically will not be upset about that because there are other students who need support also. And Maria, as Deputy Dean of Engineering, is nodding because she knows how important graduate support is. But it's true for many departments across MIT.
All right. Thank you.
Does that help?
Yeah.
Any final questions?
Mitch.
Hi. Yeah, kind of similar on that. Is it
Would you mind
helpful to
pronouncing your name for us? Is that
it's Mish, like fish.
Mish, thank you.
Yeah. So on that note, is it helpful to know there's like a box in the application to describe the nature of your funding to say like maybe I only need like a 30% shortfall or like however percent would that like describing that be
Sure, we're
good?
happy to have your particular information.
Okay.
We are in contact with departments and department heads, and we
Okay.
generally know what the funding packages are. So, and the department heads are very grateful for the support coming to their department. So give us the information you have. There are people, for example, who in their PhD program, their advisor's counting on them to TA a fall class and they really want that. There are others who might have like a 3/4 tuition package or something. But sure, any details you can share, please do. And it will not affect your odds of winning the fellowship.
Okay, gotcha. I just didn't know how much I should dig with my department to like find out the exact number. So sounds like I don't have to.
Not too much. Whatever you know
Okay.
off the top of your head is probably okay.
Okay,
Is that
thanks.
right, Marion? Would you say?
Yeah, yeah. We'll reach out to them and confirm. So yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? I want to say a special thank you to James and Sorby for taking time to join us and share. And they are 2 of our 35 graduate students we've been able to support over the last 3 years. And this has been hugely gratifying for all of us because we know how much need there is for graduate support. So thank you both for joining, and thanks everyone, and thanks all the colleagues for joining as well. And unless there are no other questions, I think we can say that's a wrap, and stay dry out there tonight, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. Bye.